Hey guys, welcome to Poor Man Mods. Today we're going to be doing a big suspension upgrade to my 1UZ swapped 2002 Lexus IS300 with the help of CubeSpeed. So today we're going to be installing a set of CubeSpeed's new coilovers for this 2002 Lexus IS300. He just recently came out with these coilovers and they have offerings for a ton of different vehicles. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that for the longest time with the IS300 and my 1JZ Mark III Supra, I've actually been really hesitant on coilovers, and that's just because every car that I've ever ridden in that's had coilovers, I was never impressed or satisfied with the ride quality. I always thought it was too harsh and too extreme. Well, CubeSpeed promises me these are going to be different. They specifically designed these to be a more streetable coilover option, so they're not going to be like riding on cinder blocks and super extreme. Now they claim you can adjust these to be stiffer, and of course you can change the spring rates if you want to track your car, but the vast majority of us spend most of our time, if not all of our time, on the street, and like where I live here in Pennsylvania, the roads are not the greatest. So that is what CubeSpeed is trying to do with their coilovers, make these a more streetable and more realistic coilover option for all of us. These coilovers do offer an independent ride height adjustment. You don't have to adjust the spring rate to adjust ride height, which for some reason other coilovers make you do. So you can independently adjust the spring rate with these coilovers, leave the spring rate alone, and they offer 33 damper adjustment settings. We do not have camber plates on these coilovers. They do offer some coilovers with camber plates, but these did not come with camber plates. One really nice thing that they come with for the rear coilovers are these remote adjusters. So you can put these on the rear coilovers and run this through your trunk, and you can adjust the damper setting without having to tear everything apart. So that's pretty cool. In addition to coming with 2 spanner wrenches, another cool thing that this kit comes with are these universal brackets for brake hoses and ABS lines. Some coilovers just kind of leave you hanging there. These offer you a solution to mount your ABS line and brake lines to, so they're a lot safer and won't hit your tire. Now this video that I'm going to be doing, I will show you how to install these, but there's a million videos out there on how to install coilovers, and honestly, it's super easy to do. So I'm going to pretty much breeze over the install. It is super quick and easy, but I'm going to focus more on the actual setup and do a driving review at the end of this video. I almost forgot. If you want a set of these coilovers, not only will I have a link in the description down below for you, but I have a coupon code right here, and if you use that, it'll save you a good chunk of change off a new set of coilovers. So check out Cube's website after this video and pick up a set of coilovers for your IS300 or whatever else you have. All right, we're getting ready to install our first coilover here, and one important thing that you need to check and make sure of is that the springs have the proper amount of preload. Cube recommends having 5 millimeters of preload, and what that means is if you unlock these lock rings, measure the length of the spring, and then tighten this first one 5 millimeters to put 5 millimeters of preload on the spring. These coilovers do come preset with that recommended preload. And one thing I did to check it, just to confirm, is I measured the current length of the spring. So for me, the very top of the spring to the bottom of the spring at this first locking ring is about 6 7/8 of an inch, and 6 7/8 of an inch on this one as well. So since these are both the same measurement and these are the front coilovers, I'm going to trust that Cube set the proper amount of preload. If your spring measurements are different, then it is possible that your preload is incorrect, and what you'll want to do is loosen both of these rings, get a measurement of your spring, and then tighten lock ring A 5 millimeters and then lock it down. But if you do this pre-measurement and your spring is the same length for both of them, you can pretty much be assured that the preload is correct. And on this one, as you can see, I have the bottom bracket removed just so you can see how much adjustment you have for the ride height in comparison to this one with it installed. So you have almost 4 inches of ride height adjustment here. Now my car, I did a big brake kit and installed roll center adjusters, which pretty much lower the car an inch already. So I'm gonna set these pretty long because my car is lowered with those roll center adjusters, even with stock springs. So I'm only gonna thread this bottom bracket on, maybe about an inch. I'm gonna make this pretty long, and hopefully that will give me the proper amount of ride height. I don't want this thing to be super slammed. And I'll try to get both of these to be about the same length. From the bottom of lock ring B to the top of this bracket, 3 1/4 inches, almost there. All right, and I'll lock them both down here, and I'm sure I'll need to adjust it once it's on the car, but I want them to be pretty even with each other. For the front coilovers, they recommend starting out at 12 clicks from the soft setting. So they come shipped to you at the soft setting. So we'll move this 12 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. So we're gonna put the wheels on the car, put it on the ground, and then we'll get a ride height measurement and then try to get them close to each other in a ballpark area where I like, and then we'll go to the rear. The reason I'm doing it this way is most of you probably don't have a lift, and most of you probably don't have a shop, and a lot of you, this could be your primary car. So I don't recommend doing all 4 corners at once. What I recommend is do the front, get the front in a ballpark area that you're happy with, and then finish it just in case you have to drive the car later that night or the next day. Don't overwhelm yourself with trying to do all of this in one shot. So take your time on it. If you just put coilovers on the front and your stock stuff is in the rear, you can still drive it. It might not look the greatest or ride the greatest, but it can get you by. Now that the car's in the ground, I'm going to finally tighten these 3 nuts up top. Try to settle the car a little bit before we get our measurement. Okay, this is good. This is very good. We're actually higher than I was expecting, so we're not gonna be super slammed. So right now, from the ground to this fender, we are like exactly 26 inches. And this side, we're actually lower. Like 25 7/8, but that's pretty close. So this is good enough for now. If we had to drive the car, we totally could. So I'm gonna call the front good for now, and then we'll move on to the rear. Now the nuts for the top of the shock on the rear of this car, they're in the trunk. 3 on this side, 3 on that side. It's a pain to film this, so I'm just showing you where they are for right now. Got to pull back that fabric material over the wheel well, and then remove the 3 14mm nuts. All right, getting ready to install the rear coilovers now. I removed this bottom bracket again so you can see just how much adjustment there is. Now, when I installed this bracket onto the front coilover, I pretty much lined the bottom of this shock up with the top of this hole right here. Now, the rear naturally is gonna be a little bit higher than the front on my car because I don't have those RCAs. So I'm just totally guessing here, and I'm gonna go an inch past this. So about 2 inches of thread engagement on here to start out. This is just very ballpark, but we're gonna leave it about there. And the reason I'm guesstimating this, the reason this is so long, look at just how long the factory one is. It's a very long setup. Now before we install them into the rear, we're gonna get the damper setting adjusted. You don't necessarily have to do that on the front. You can wait till it's installed because it's pretty easy to get to. The rear, not so much, but luckily it does come with remote adjusters. So simply put the cube adjuster knob in here, make sure you feel it engaged. and they recommend the initial setting on the rear is 8 clicks from the softest setting. So rotate this all the way to the left, and it seems like it's already there. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now just to confirm, we'll go back towards the soft setting and count again. And take note of where the knob is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so we were at 8. Let's go again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're not very audible. It's definitely more of a feel thing. It doesn't make a click. So you just got to be gentle and double check your work, triple check your work. And so we are at 8 clicks from the softest setting. And now this can go in the rear. The struts aren't going through the car enough for me to get the nuts on, and I am by myself, so I'm going to use this piece of wood to push up on the coilover just a little bit so I can get the nuts started and then get the wheel on. Just a little bit. All right, so on this side of the car, we have 27.5 inches from ground to fender. The other side, we have 27 5/8. We're only 1/8 of an inch off from side to side, which is pretty good. So what I'm gonna do now is, I think I'm gonna lower this rear a whole inch and see where that gets us. All right, here's my method for precisely lowering them 1 inch. What I did was get my tape measure and measure 1 inch from the top of this lock ring up on the shock body here, and the bottom of this tape line is 1 inch. So what we'll do now, move this lock ring up, and it's gonna stop there at 1 inch. And now we can rotate this shock body either by hand or with the wrench on lock ring B. You don't wanna turn ring A, you wanna turn this bottom ring. That's 1 inch. Now we can, loosely lock this down, put the wheel back on, and recheck our height. All right, very interesting. We raised that lock ring 1 inch, and we lowered the car pretty much 1.5 inches. This side, we went from 27.5 inches to 25 7/8. Pretty darn close to 1.5 inches. Same thing on the other side. So there seems to be like it seems to be about a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you move that lock ring up or down 1 inch, it's gonna affect the car 1.5 inches. And we're very close to being level all the way around the car. So the other side of the car is a 1/4 inch higher. So I'm gonna take the car back up in the air and move that lock ring up 1/8 of an inch to move the car 1/4 of an inch to make the back level, and we're pretty close to being level with the front. To raise this corner, I placed a piece of tape just above this lock ring, rotated the shock body counterclockwise, if you're looking at it from the bottom up, rotated it clockwise, and then that gives us about 1/8 of an inch gap. We'll put the wheel back on and see what the height is. After we torque this, of course. Now we're going to torque this lock ring. The torque spec is between 51 and 59 foot-pounds. All right, fantastic. Got everything torqued down. And now 26 1/8. So the rear is even and the front is pretty darn close to being even. So what we're going to do now is we're not going to fine tune it yet. Like the car is okay the way the stance is, but I'm going to drive it for a day or two and let everything settle before adjusting it even more, because if you fine tune it now and then you drive it, things are going to change. So we're going to leave the ride height as is, leave these height recordings on there, see if there's a change over the next day or two of driving it, and then we will further adjust it. All right, drove the car for a few days and I'm happy with the ride so far. It has settled about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch all the way around. Here are, here's a terrible drawing, but here are my current measurements. Right rear, 25 3/8. Front right, 25 1/2. Rear left, 25 11/16. Front left, 25 3/4. These are all pretty close, but I'm gonna try to fine tune this now. So just to start off, I'm gonna drop this right left corner. I'm gonna drop the rear left corner about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch, somewhere in between there. I'm gonna drop the front left 1/4 inch and the front right 1/8 inch. And that's how much I'm going to move the lock rings on the coilovers. And that should get me pretty darn close to being level the whole way around. You can set this up 2 different ways. If you're more for stance and for taking pictures, you want the car to be you can set the car to be totally level all the way around. But if you're more into racing and performance driving, if you make the car level without any weight in it, then when you sit in the car, it's not going to be level. So realistically, I think you do want this front left corner at least to be a smidgens higher than everything else, because when you get in the car, it is going to drop, especially if you're a bigger guy like me. So you could do this with weight in the driver's seat to make it more realistic. I'm not going to go that extreme because I don't track the car, so I'm just going to try to make this pretty close to level the whole way around. This is the rear driver's side. We'll raise this ring about 1/4 of an inch. Right about there, and we'll torque it down. For the front right side, we're just gonna lower it a tiny bit, just that much, and see where that gets us. And getting your torque wrench on the front of these coilovers can be pretty tricky. You definitely need a ratcheting style torque wrench. If you just have one of those beam style torque wrenches, one that doesn't ratchet, it's probably gonna be pretty tricky for you. But that's the orientation of my torque wrench on the spanner wrench. So, a little bit tricky, but it's definitely doable. Okay, got this car back on the ground after lowering it a smidge. I haven't checked the ride height yet. I'm gonna drive it first before I recheck it. But I have to say, the ride quality of these coilovers was very surprising to me. They are way softer than I was expecting. They do feel like a good street coilover. I was terrified they were gonna be stiff as concrete blocks and horribly uncomfortable. But I'm gonna adjust them, and this is me being really, really picky. All right, so on the fronts, we did 12 clicks from the softest setting, and the rear, we did 8 clicks from the softest setting. Now, what I would recommend is keeping a notepad or something like that to keep a record of your changes, especially if you autocross or track this. You can have a street setup and then a track setup. And then if you just write down what your settings are, it's no problem. If you change it, it's easy to go back instead of troubleshooting it. So I was very happy with the way this rode. And this is me just being picky, and because I have the adjustment available to me, I will adjust it. But honestly, if it did not change at all, I'd be totally happy. But I'm going to make the front 1 click softer. It probably won't even do anything, but I'm going to do the front 1 click softer, and then actually the rear I think is a little too soft, which is a good thing. I was afraid it was going to be stiff as hell. So I'm actually going to add 3 clicks to the back and then see how it drives, and we'll go from there. So on the front, I will go 1 click to the soft side. And for the rear, we'll go 1, 2, 3 to the hard side. All right, so we got the CubeSpeed coilovers installed, and I couldn't stop there. So I got wheels for the car. Look at that. Koenig oversteers. I think they look really good. They're not too extreme, kind of like an OEM style. They're similar to the IS350 F Sport wheels that I wanted. I think they look really good on this car. And yeah, because I put bigger meats on these tires, because the wheels are 8 inches instead of 7, there's a little bit of rubbish problem in the back. So Had to lift the rear a little bit more, added some stiffness, but the car looks great and it drives great. There's still a little bit of rubbing back there that I need to take care of with rolling the fenders, but that's not the fault of the coilovers, it's the fault of the wheels. That fitment though, that is why it rubs. Oh yeah, so I've got this car pretty much dialed in for how I want it with these wheels and tires. Added some stiffness, raised it a little bit, but even with adding that stiffness, I am still very pleased with how this car drives. I am so happy with it. It actually reminds me a lot of that little guy over there. That little guy over there, my ISF. It's daily drivable and manageable, sporty, but it's not like you're riding on a cloud and you're not like riding on cinder blocks. It's a good happy medium in my opinion. So I am definitely in love with the way this car is driving. It handles better than before, and it's a little stiffer than before, but it's totally manageable for a daily driver. So let's go take this thing out on a road, and I'll give you a little driving review for it. The coilovers on this, you can totally daily drive. It is totally comfortable, and it's totally comfortable the way it is, and there's still plenty of room for adjustment if you want to go stiffer or softer. CubeSpeed really did a good job setting up these coilovers to be on a daily driven car that's on, less than ideal roads. And me being in Pennsylvania on the back road, it's kind of like pretty much worst case scenario unless you live on a dirt or gravel road. It is not too harsh or aggressive. It drives so good. It's just soft enough to be acceptable for a daily driver, but it's also sporty enough. You can hook this thing into corners and it handles so good. It is like the best of both worlds with this setup. I was honestly really worried that it was going to be like riding on cinder blocks and just totally miserable, because every car I've been in with coilovers has been like that. I can honestly say, for a street car, this is the best driving car I have ever been in that has coilovers. It rides so good. You can totally daily this thing. By far, the best riding car on the street that I've ever been in with coilovers. But the way this drives reminds me a lot of my ISF. It's just that stiff to where it's sporty, but manageable. And I freaking love it. So let's do some ripping on these back roads and see how it does. These Pennsylvania back roads are certainly less than ideal roads. So good. Bumps like a dream. There's a little rub there. So really rough road right here, a bunch of patchwork. Handles it no problem. Totally manageable. Even hitting sewers and manholes, it is not a dramatic event this turn. Like a champ, baby. Oh, so good, dude. Freaking love it. Freaking school bus. There they are, no problem. So in the beginning, I'll be honest and say that I was very worried about installing coilovers on this car. I've had this car for many, many years, and I've always enjoyed the way it drove. And I've been in a bunch of cars with coilovers and was never impressed with the way they drove on the street. It was always horrible. So I was hesitant on doing it, and I'm glad I did it, honestly. This car drives so much better, and it is so manageable on the street. You wouldn't just driving it, you wouldn't think it's on coilovers by how comfortable and manageable these terrible roads are. It's hard to convey that through a video. I don't really have any data to really show you how soft and comfortable it does drive, but I'm going to continue daily driving this car. I alternate between this and my 4Runner, and it's not going to get me fatigued or annoyed or anything like that. It's seriously a perfect setup for a daily driver, and I would highly recommend it. And so now that I know CubeSpeed can make a good coilover kit, there's a certain red car in the corner of my shop that doesn't have coilovers on it yet. Maybe I'll have to change that in the future. So yeah, this car is just an all-around street machine with the 1UZ swap and the CubeSpeed coilovers on it. It's not gonna set any track records, but this is a realistic daily driving street machine that I could take it to the drag strip and do a couple runs, or autocross, or even a road course, and I can take it to a car show. I can do pretty much everything with this car. So once again, thank you to CubeSpeed for finally making a quality coilover kit for a realistic street car. Most of us, I would imagine most of the people watching this video right now, you probably don't take your car to a track, and if you do, it's not often. If I had to guess, your car probably sees regular roads 98, 99, or even 100% of the time. And that's what these coilovers were designed to do, and it's what they're good at. I can honestly say that. So thank you, Cube, for making a coilover kit for us 99% of people. So I couldn't be happier with the way it drives, you know, daily driving style and also spirited driving on the back roads. Couldn't be happier. So if you guys are interested in a set of these CubeSpeed coilovers, you can use my coupon code to save you a bunch of money on them. You can use my coupon code right here and it'll save you a bunch of money on a set of coilovers for your car. So go check out CubeSpeed's website. They have coilovers for more than just an IS300 and a Mark III Supra. So definitely check out their website and see what else they offer. Use my coupon code to save you some money. And I will see you guys in the next video.